What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. And today we're gonna go over which Spider-Man movie was the best. Before we get on the video, if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. As many of you already know, Spider-Man Homecoming was recently released, and for the most part, fans and critics seem to be loving it. The main reason why some people were a little worried about the film is because it happens to be the 6th solo movie that Spider-Man has received. In order to keep the plot and characters interesting, Jon Watts, the director of the movie, needed to make sure that it was different from the original trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man films. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland did a very good job at portraying Spider-Man as accurately as possible, but only one of them was part of a film that can be easily considered one of the best superhero movies of all time. In this video, we will rank the Spider-Man movies from the worst to best. Number 6, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Garfield managed to give an incredible performance as Spider-Man, but some fans believed he wasn't the greatest Peter Parker, mainly because he lacked the nerdy personality that everybody fell in love with in the comics. The problem with this film is that it spent too much time on setting up Sinister Six instead of focusing on making it a great movie. Unfortunately, the writers tried to include way too many villains, which is why the film was a mess. Many people were disappointed because the villains were very weak, especially the Green Goblin. In the movie, Peter told Gwen that Harry was his best friend, even though they only had 2 scenes together. If the writers developed a strong friendship between Harry and Peter, then it would have been more interesting to see these characters become enemies. The best part of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the chemistry between Peter and Gwen. This movie gave fans a beautifully executed Stacy death scene that fans will never forget. Number 5, Spider-Man 3. Almost everyone can agree that Spider-Man 3 was the weakest movie of the original trilogy. Even the director of the film, Sam Raimi, was disappointed with this film. He thought that it didn't work well because he was not able to believe in all the characters. According to Raimi, the movie was doomed at the moment he tried to raise the stakes after Spider-Man 2. If he could do it all over again, he would have just stuck with the characters and the relationships and progressed them to the next step instead of trying so hard to make it better than the second Spider-Man movie. Originally, Raimi didn't plan on introducing Venom as one of the villains of the movie, but Sony pushed him to do it. In the end, Raimi was forced out a character that he didn't like, and the result was a film that the director didn't fully stand behind. Another problem with this movie is that emo Peter Parker was a jerk and he did not remind people of the character they fell in love with in the first 2 films. One thing fans did love about Spider-Man 3 was the sympathetic Sandman. Number 4, The Amazing Spider-Man. When Marvel announced that there was going to be a Spider-Man reboot, many fans were angry because they were not ready to say goodbye to Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. The one complaint everybody had about Raimi's films is that Spidey was not funny, which is probably why Sony made sure that Garfield's Spider-Man told plenty of jokes. The movie did have a few problems, such as the directing style and the villain having no motive. In the film, Dr. Kirk Connors wants to regrow his arm, which eventually leads to him becoming a lizard. He had the potential to be an interesting villain, but instead he was an underdeveloped character who came up with the plan to turn everyone living in New York City into lizards. Also, the movie could have been much better if they decided to use bright colors instead of dark colors. The most exciting part of the film was definitely the web-slinging moments because they were shot practically. Stuntmen were strapped into giant rigs and sent swinging through the air on set. Number 3, Spider-Man Homecoming. Even though Homecoming is the 6th Spider-Man solo movie, it still feels completely new and fresh. What makes this film so different from the other Spider-Man movies is that the cast is filled with young actors. Tom Holland actually looked like he was a high schooler, whereas Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield looked like they were at least in college. This movie reminds people why Peter Parker is such a likable and funny character. There were some very special moments that made Holland's acting abilities really stand out. He's not the only actor who managed to surprise everyone with his performance. Michael Keaton's Vulture can be considered one of the greatest villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The reason why he became a villain makes sense, and it gives people some insight into why he acts the way he does. Also, Zendaya and Robert Downey Jr. were very good even though they had very small roles in the film. Not only is this a great superhero movie, but it is also an amazing coming-of-age story. Number 2, Spider-Man. It doesn't matter how many Spider-Man movies Marvel makes, this one will always be a classic. The reason why this was the first film to debut with the $100 million opening weekend is because everyone wanted to see this character on the big screen. Tobey Maguire did an excellent job at portraying a nerdy and lovable Peter Parker, but some fans did have a problem with the Spider-Man because he didn't make too many jokes. Harry Osborn and Mary Jane were very well written characters. This movie makes it clear that Raimi truly understood all these characters and wanted to develop the relationship Peter had with MJ and Harry. The other supporting characters such as J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson and Rosemary Harris as Aunt May were perfectly casted. Also, William Dafoe, the actor who plays Green Goblin, was very passionate about his character and wanted to perform the majority of his stunt work by himself. The final fight scene between Spider-Man and Green Goblin was truly iconic and brutal. And number 1, Spider-Man 2. This is without a doubt one of the greatest comic book movies to ever exist. The plot of the film is inspired from the Spider-Man No More storyline of 1967's Amazing Spider-Man. In the movie, Peter Parker promises himself that he will no longer allow Spider-Man to get in the way of things most important to him, mainly his love for Mary Jane Watson. MJ is frustrated at Peter's reluctance to be with her and his lack of commitment, which is why she begins a relationship with a man named John Jameson. Harry Osborn discovers that his best friend is Spider-Man, and he is certain that Peter is responsible for his father's death. He eventually goes down a dark path and becomes a Green Goblin. One of the strongest parts about this film was the main villain, Dr. Octopus. Alfred Molina was the perfect casting choice for this character, and he gave such a compelling performance. The train fight scene between Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus will go down what I think is the greatest battle in a superhero movie. The most powerful moment in the movie was probably when the people on the train promised to keep his identity a secret. And that is it for the video, guys. Let me know your order from the worst to best Spider-Man movies in the comments below. As always, leave a like and subscribe for more. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Valenplana, and I'll see you all later.